Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Disco Pants Podcast, episode 2 on our new YouTube channel. I'm Connor Bromley. I'm joined by a very brown, very bronze James Copley. How are you doing? Clearly enjoying the sun.
Yeah, I'm good. I had a nice weekend off in Teesdale and it was Scorchio, so I spent a lot of time doing long walks and then in the River Tees, which was very, very pleasant. So yeah, I am a little bit bronzed, which is I'm more bronzed now than when I came back from Croatia, bizarrely. But I just
Yeah,
put no sun cream on because you just don't in Britain, do you? You just
no,
I never put sun cream on in Britain, and then before you know it,
you been.
that's it. Well, I'm not even burnt. Well, I didn't feel burnt anyway.
No, you don't
But
look burnt. You look. It was certainly next to my paley complexion. You're looking good.
I think the twice weekly five-a-side in the sun does help as well during the summer. Tops the
Yeah,
tan up.
yeah, that is true. It does help. Right, we're here today to talk largely about preseason, though I'm sure we will touch on some other stuff. But basically, we want to do kind of a more generic Sunderland preseason preview and go through kind of the games, but also what we expect and kind of even an idea of where we are in terms of players returning, because it's difficult to know when the guys who've been at the World Cup are going to be back. Like, Granit Xhaka literally finished a few days ago, so are we going to give him 3 or 4 weeks off, or do the players want to be back in? I mean, we signed Thomas Meunier, and he is obviously up in the northeast. Is he just going to stay now? Is he just not going to have a break? So there's a lot of things that are kind of unclear with that. So we'll hopefully kind of uncover where we are with that. But in terms of pre-season, James, York this weekend, what do you what are you looking for this weekend from Sunderland?
Oh, it's a very, very good question. I think just fitness. It's very hard with the opening pre-season friendly to get an indication of the team Lebris is building. You usually get that further into the pre-season campaign. The opening one's usually just for a bit of fitness, and it actually differs a lot from last season's first pre-season game, which was a double header. But the B side went to Hebben, and that was like Abdullah Bar, Jan Poveda. And then the first team went to South Shields, but we'd signed like loads of players by then. It was a first look at Noah Siddiqui. I think Habib Diarra might have played that day. There were others as well. So that was really interesting. Whereas this one, the team's more settled. I think you're right in saying that the lads that have been quite far in the World Cup probably won't be there. I don't envisage Xhaka being there. I don't think Talby's there. I think he's on holiday in Turkey or something at the moment. The new signing's interesting because has he just come up to sign and then will Sunderland give him another week or 2 weeks? Will they then link up to go back to America, which is where Sunderland do the rest of their main preseason tour, but there's also a little bit in France as well. So I don't know, really. It's hard to say. I mean, I guess what I'm looking for is if you do get an opportunity against York, and you're not necessarily expected to start the first Premier League game of the season against Ipswich, that you really put your hand up. I think that's what you look for. Say if I don't know his injury status at the moment, or a Romain Mundle gets on the field, or Jensen Sealed again don't know his injury status. Same with a player like Agialisi. But you want to see them really, really put their hands up. It's also interesting as well because there's a lot of players who are probably expected to leave the club, like Alan Brown. Will he feature? Will he get minutes to maintain his fitness? And then sort of put himself in the shop window a little bit as well. Do these players want to play these games if moves are on the back burner? If they aren't involved at all, say if Alan Brown just isn't anywhere to be seen, does that mean that he is quite close to leaving the club? So it's all very, very, very interesting. We might see a couple of youngsters as well, Connor, get an opportunity at York. We know that there's a team playing South Shields on the same day, Sunderland 11, which will be mostly made up of under-21s and then some players like Abdullah Bar, Timothy Pembele. But will Lebris include a couple with the first team for experience, like Jensen Jones, Finn Garagusian, perhaps Treogan Sui? The young goalkeeper, Joe Cowan, who's only like 16, he's been training with the senior setup as well. So will they take him along for the ride, or will they want him maybe to play against South Shields? I don't know. There's a lot up in the air. It's really, really interesting. But I actually love the first day of pre-season because it makes the new season feel really real, doesn't it? And, you're at a place like South Shields or York, wherever you end up, and, you see your mates for the first time, you see your colleagues for the first time, and it's that first step on the new season. And I always really, really like it. The sun's usually shining as well, so I get a top up me tan. But yeah, I've never been to York either, Connor, so I'm really looking forward to going because I've been to York, but I've never been to York Stadium. So I'm looking forward to taking a ground off the list as well. But Yeah, it's again just really, really hard to say what will happen because there's always too much to predict. Really, like you couldn't predict the starting 11, could you? No, it's just possible.
No, no. I mean, we might give it a go, but no. You probably can't. But let's go through. I'm going to read through all the other games we've got in pre-season, and then we'll go back to the York game. So we play York this weekend. That's the senior team, and then we're sending an 11 down to Sheffield. Sheffield. We're not going to Sheffield. To South Shields, and then we play Liverpool on the 25th. That game is currently on LFC TV for those watching from home. I presume Sunderland will have a streaming platform for that, but currently we don't know as we record this. Then we play Leeds on the 30th of July, and that game, as well as the Wrexham game, they are both on Premier Sports. So if people want to watch them, they've been announced for Premier Sports. My dad is a big Premier Sports watcher because they've got La Liga, and he rang us very excitedly to tell us that the Sunderland games were on there. We play Lawns twice, but one game's behind closed door on the 8th of August, and then we've got Rennes at home on the 15th, which is the final one before the season starts. So I always find pre-seasons really interesting because when it goes well for you, you read a lot into it, and when it goes badly for you, you say pre-season means nothing, it's irrelevant. And the amount of times in the past I've seen Sunderland have a good or bad pre-season. I remember Paolo Di Canio, the year he was in, Sunderland I think had a pretty decent pre-season. We all felt pretty excited. We played in the Barclays Asia Trophy, as it was at the time. We looked pretty good.
Under Moyes, we drew away at Borussia Dortmund when they were a proper side as well. It wasn't that far after they'd got to the Champions League final, was it? Maybe it was a year or two.
Yeah.
Everyone was quite optimistic and excited.
I remember doing really well at the Amsterdam tournament under Steve Bruce as well. So like,
we lost under LeBruce at Bradford. I believe.
Well, last pre-season we weren't great. We lost. Beat us 3-0.
Yeah, the stadium like they did because I think that might have been curtains for Dan Neil that game actually. And Chris Rigg made a mistake, didn't he? So which in fairness, looking back, might have set him back a little bit in terms of his confidence because it was a little turn on the edge of the area or a little step over sort of thing he tried to do, got robbed of possession, and they scored, and that did I think knock his confidence for a little while. Looking back at the early part of the season, and then he's since sort of refound form, hasn't he? Particularly towards the back end of the season when he got more opportunities. But just goes to show that what happens can have an impact. But it's funny, innit? Because I laughed when the South Shields game got announced because Luis Jimenez Semedo might make that team. And I remember when we signed him, he scored like, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like 3 and 4 pre-season, wasn't it? And you thought, we've got to play.
He scored against
Shields. Yeah, he scored against Shields, and I thought we've got to play here. I remember writing an analysis piece saying how good he looked because he was dropping into like pockets on the right hand side, and I thought, class, this is really great. And then you read loads into it, and then all of a sudden starts the season, and it's well, yeah, I'll not describe what I really think, but
not great.
No.
So in terms of, I'm at the York game as well this weekend. I've actually been before. So for anyone who hasn't been there, the stadium is in a retail park, and it's while I don't want to slate into it, it's basically a characterless stadium. It's a generic new build, kind of like a new build house, which
it's even called LNER, isn't it? So it's not even like it's got a good name.
Yeah, and it backs onto a cinema. So behind one of the goals is a cinema. So it's an interesting one, and it's in a retail park. So look forward to that. There is plenty of places to eat though.
But you just the exciting thing is going to these places, and it's so close. You just know there'll be just loads of Sunderland fans. And that's what I'm like. I've had some great pre-season days at South Shields where there's just obviously more Sunderland fans than there is Shields fans, and they're just absolutely everywhere. The place is packed, and it's people are moving around. They're just standing by the pitch, and all. I absolutely love it. I think it's class. The Hebben one was class last year. I know it was only I think Graham Murty led a side, which, as I mentioned, had Pervader in and stuff, but essentially didn't really watch much of the game and just caught up with people I hadn't seen since Wembley, and it was just so exciting because we were going into the Premier League and we didn't know what was going to happen, but we were signing all of these players for like 17.5 million quid. It's a bit of a different feel this year, but still extremely exciting going into Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of, I think it's very difficult to predict the team because, well, I think it's impossible to predict the team, but you can at least have an idea of who will roughly be playing, no whether or not they'll start or not, but you'll know that, Elborg has been back in pre-season training, so you think he'd be there. Patterson, is he going to get potentially a run out at goalkeeper?
He's training at the Academy Light at the moment, so you would imagine so at some point.
Yeah, so like we could potentially see him again in a Sunderland shirt. Then if we're looking in the defence, Ronaldo, he's been back in pre-season. Dan Ballard, he's been back in pre-season, so you think he'd be about. Nori Mukiele, he's been back in, so he should be about there. Trey Hugh might be an interesting one because he was obviously, well, him and Ballard, I suppose, were both. Actually, no, Ballard didn't go, did he? Because he had that injury. But Trey Hugh, I think he is back in training, though, isn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so you think he would play. So you've got a pretty strong back four there.
But then you've also got Will Jensen Seal to be available. Arthur Masuaku hasn't gone anywhere yet, although he was at the World Cup. He did exit, 2 weeks ago, maybe?
I think he's
as you
back.
say, is he not back yet? So then you've got players like Leo Hjelde as well. As I say, I think Jensen Jones will potentially be involved. So there's a big pool to pick from, and it wouldn't surprise me if it's a first half 11 and then a second half 11.
Yeah. What about Adji Elise? Is there a world where he potentially gets minutes? Because we talked about him a while ago, didn't we? Where we said there is a possibility for him to actually eke his way into the squad.
There is. He can't stay fit long enough. I think that's the problem. He reminds me of Niall Huggins. We can all see there's a player there. I think with him, because of the injury, it was a groin injury that kept him out of Portsmouth's team, and he pretty much had to come straight back to Sunderland. I would be surprised to see him just because I think they just really need to get him right, however they do it. So I'd be surprised if they sort of rush him. But the time frame you would suspect is getting closer. But yeah, just try and get your body right, Angie, because it's been a torrid sort of 2 years, hasn't it? Really.
Yeah.
But hugely talented player. I just think because of that injury record, it's not going to happen for him, unfortunately. Last pre-season, I picked Niall Huggins to be Sunderland's dark horse because he could play left back, right back. Really, really, really strong footballer. But then a couple of little setbacks. He actually played for Sunderland in pre-season. He ended up going on out on loan to Wickham, didn't he? And it's just not happened for them. I sort of feel like Adjulisi's in that same category now, as hard as it is to say, because such a nice bloke and everybody likes him. But I can't see him being a credible option in the Premier League, not because of his talent, which is there, but it's just the availability. You look at someone like Luke O'Nien. Luke O'Nien is not as talented a footballer as Adji Elise, but he's always pretty much available, and he plays volumes and volumes of games over multiple seasons. And unfortunately, Adji just hasn't had that.
Yeah. I'm going to go through. I've got the squad list up, so I'm going to go through who I think should be available. Obviously, we don't know injury situations, but Patterson should be available. Elbow should be available in the and then Simon Moore should be available for goalkeeper. If we move into defence, it should be Ballard should be there. O'Nien should be there. Ronaldo should be there. Mukiele should be there. Then Trey Hume is a possibility. Hjelde and Elise could well be there. And then also you've got Jensen Sealt. And I would guess players like Timothy Pembele won't be there. Midfield.
No, they'll be with the no-hopers.
Yeah, midfield's a bit more interesting because we've got Chris Rigg, and then obviously Habib Diarra won't be there, nor will Noah Siddiqui. You've got Enzo Lefebvre, and I think in terms of first team players, other than Alan Brown, that is our midfield, is Lefebvre and Rigg, so that's obviously going to be interesting. And then the forward line, we've got Jocelyn Tarby is back in training, so he should be available. Mundell, we don't know what his situation is, but he should be there. He's been in pre-season, so he should be there. Who else have we got? Ahmad Abdullahi up front. He could well be leading the line. Finn Geragoosen could well also be. I suspect they'll probably swap in the centre forward shift because I presume Wilson Isidore won't be back yet. And then other than that probably just about covers it. So we are going to have to rely on some younger players because there we can see we do not necessarily. We have a lot of defenders to pick from, but our midfield and forward options are a little bit light.
Well, you know what that means, don't you? You've got to play Luke O'Nien in a sixth. Get him in there.
Why not?
Labrise is or Trey Hume in the midfield as well. That'll be that might be one. But yeah, I would expect, as I mentioned, Jensen Jones can play both fullbacks and in midfield. Jaden Jones, who's no relation to Jensen, but Jaden Jones is actually Harrison Jones's brother who has just left the club. But imagine Jaden Jones, who can play as a 6 and an 8, might be involved. You've got Jack Whittaker as well. He can play off either flank and as a number 10. I could see him being in and around it as well. So yeah, there'll definitely be opportunities for youngsters. And I guess some of it as well is that we don't know this for sure, but does the stage at which you got knocked out of the World Cup, does that make a difference to when you're expected back? So a Wilson Isidore or a Simon Adingra might be expected back a little bit earlier than a Granit Xhaka or a Talby. I don't know the answer to that, but we might see maybe one or two that have reported back in, but I'm not necessarily 100% sure on that, because I guess when you look at their load and their workload, they'll be pretty in a rhythm, won't they? Whereas a lot of the lads who've had the summer off Enzo Lefebvre, they won't have much rhythm at all. So yeah, it's really interesting and tough to call.
Yeah, I would guess, if it was me, anyone who's been at the World Cup, because they've also played warm-up games beforehand and the Premier League season finished the 24th of May, then they were away for the warm-up games, then they're at the World Cup. I mean, a lot of these players probably only got a week at the end of the season and then they were straight in. So I would guess that anyone who's at the World Cup, we probably won't see potentially until they're back from the America trip, which isn't ideal because you probably want everyone on that trip. But fundamentally, Granit Xhaka literally finished a few days ago. It feels unrealistic to expect him to be travelling with Sunderland.
What date did they go to America?
Well, the first game's on the 25th, but there's an event, isn't there, a couple of days beforehand. So I'm guessing they probably fly out to America early next week, maybe Monday, Tuesday.
Wouldn't surprise me if those World Cup players are allowed to sort of link up the couple of days before. That would be my guess.
What do you think that a lot of them will be there for the pre-season?
I mean, it would make sense. It's hard to do a full pre-season without half the squad, isn't it? And that's three games. That's the main body of your pre-season. So, in my opinion, although I do take the point about a lot of these players have played a lot of games, but do you need them in and around the group? I would suggest. Otherwise, not much point of having a pre-season if Robin Roofs isn't there, if Brian Bromley isn't there, if Granit Xhaka isn't there, Talby, Anguilo, that is a lot of players to not have a massive part of your pre-season with. So I mean, you would have 2 games when you get home, third behind closed doors. Is that enough? I'm not necessarily sure. I mean, there's a commercial side of this as well. Sunderland are part of a trophy where they're selling tickets, and they want to put the best foot forward in America and all of this sort of stuff. So I don't know. I'd be cautious on that one.
See, I don't think that a player who's been particularly. I look at the ones who are playing into the knockout stages. Maybe Isidore. He finished up with Haiti pretty early. He's had at least 2 and a bit weeks off now, maybe. But I think the ones that played late into it, I just think it would be unrealistic to not give them at least 2 or 3 weeks
maybe
off.
Granite will just stay in America until that starts.
Yeah. I think as well what's interesting is I don't know how it's managed in terms of does a player... So I would guess Jocelyn Tarby, because he played in the Toulon tournament or whatever it's called now. I would guess that he said, I want to be back in on the first day of pre-season because I want to make sure that I'm in contention for that spot. I wonder if players that are on the fringes, maybe, like Habib Diarra, who I think needed a big pre-season, do them players think, I think I could do with coming back in, whereas players who have been more established, who have played more, maybe they think I need to take the time.
Simon Adingra played twice off the bench, didn't he? So he might be thinking, I need to get in and around it.
Well, Roof's never played.
And in and around the club to get my eye in. I mean, especially with Adingra, he's probably going to move, isn't he? So he'll be looking to maintain fitness, whether he wants to play in these pre-season games or not when there's moves going on in the background. I don't know, because you can pick up injuries and stuff. So yeah, it's a bit of a lottery, really.
Yeah,
it's complicated things, the World Cup, hasn't it?
It has. And the thing is as well, you've got to remember the Premier League starts a week later. So we're currently exactly a month before our final pre-season game, and the players have been back in training exactly a week because they went back in last Wednesday. So actually, we've got quite a long pre-season. Like 6 weeks is quite chunky. When you're in the Championship, normally it's 4 weeks-ish. So our pre-season is a little bit longer, and maybe that does afford you basically players. Maybe they do link up for the Wrexham game and they fly over roughly for that point. But I don't see them being... Anyone who's been at the World Cup, I don't see them playing against York. And then the ones the knockouts, the knockout ones won't be playing against Liverpool. I think maybe you'll see players like Siddiqui and Diarra for that Leeds game at the end of July.
Well, we'll see. We shall see.
We shall see. Right, do we want to talk any more about pre-season, or should we talk about some little bit of newsy bits?
Yeah, let's go for the news. We love the news. We are the news podcast, the Disco Pants news section.
Are we the news podcast? That's news. That's news to me.
Well, we are two newsmen, really, if you think about it. Obviously, you do your daily live streams, and I
That's true.
sit reporting Sunderland news all day. So we're not like news first, but we do like the news, don't we?
We do like the news. We like to have things to talk about.
We do.
Where do you want to start then? Should we start with new signing?
Yes, let's start with him.
Yeah. What's your initial view on this? Because I think a lot of people have been positive about it, but the ones who've been negative are looking at one thing only, which is age.
Yes, I agree. I think it probably spells the end for Sunderland's pursuit of Hertroider. This guy can play right back, he can play right midfield as well. He is vastly experienced. It allows maybe Hume to play further forward sometimes. It allows Miquele maybe to play centre back sometimes if Hume is needed over at left back. So it's good to have versatile players. It's good to have experience. We know we've got more games, and this lad is hugely experienced. He's played for Dortmund, Belgian national team, PSG. He's won a lot of trophies. So I think, and he seems like a really nice fella as well, by the way, but I think his cultural significance to the football club, Sunderland have seen what Granit Xhaka has brought, and they've thought maybe we'll actually have some more of that. Maybe he's on a lesser scale because he's not as well known, but there's no harm in having some experience around the group. I think it's probably smart business in a sense that we know Sunderland are slightly more hamstrung than other clubs because of the UEFA financial restrictions. So squad cost ratio says you can spend 85% of your revenue, whereas UEFA it's 70%. So for me, signing him in that position and not Hertroider for 20 million euros plus a signing on fee plus your wage is smart business because it might allow them to pick up another Sewell or somebody like that in an attacking area. So it plugs a gap. It serves a purpose. I think it makes sense on a lot of levels. It's a 2-year deal. Because he's a free transfer, Sunderland will have paid a higher agent fee and probably will be paying slightly higher wages. However, it won't be the same package that would have got Hertroider or somebody a little bit younger. So for me, it does make sense. I do get what fans are saying, why have we signed another right back and stuff. But when you actually look at the squad, it allows for a tactical flexibility. He brings experience. I think it reminds me of the Ronaldo Mandava signing last season, although he's a little bit older. We'll obviously have to see him play before we judge. But he's played a lot of football. He's played a lot in Europe as well these past couple of seasons. So I think his experience will be invaluable. And I think his signing will be judged on what Sunderland go on to do. Like, obviously, if we just sign this guy and that's it, like that is disappointing. But I imagine and expect there's more coming down the pipeline. We know Sunderland are going to spend some money, but there's nothing wrong with picking up an experienced option on a free transfer if he allows you to spend money elsewhere. And actually, I would be more concerned thinking about it, even though we all love Hertroider, like if you do spend a lot of money on a player like him, does that hamstring you in other areas of the pitch that aren't as strong? Possibly, potentially. So I'm more than okay with this signing.
Yeah, I'm happy with it. I mean, you look at his profile, and I read through all the trophies that he won on my transfer talk show this one, and it's like this guy is a serial winner who basically for the last 15 years has played European football and league football, and he even said in his interview, he was asked about why he wanted to sign. It was because they were in Europe and he's used to the rhythm of 2 games a week. So this is somebody that is like really, really happy and comfortable and actually wants that experience. So it shows as well. I think a lot of fans were maybe disappointed when, to change slightly tact on where we are, the Mihajlovic story where it looks like he's going to sign for Leeds, but it looks like Sunderland were in for him. And I think people are like, well, why are Leeds beating us to a signing? But I think it's probably simply that A, at Leeds, Mihajlovic is going to get minutes, and B, I don't think Sunderland were willing to meet the asking price, whereas Leeds were, and I think that's why that deal got done.
And C, they've just lost strike. We haven't lost either of our first choice centre backs. We know we would like to strengthen at left centre back, but there's no point of going above our budget massively for a player that wasn't necessarily a first team starter. So, I mean, Leeds have probably done well to get him, and let's not pretend that we all didn't fancy him, because I think most of us did. But I think there's a side of this as well that Leeds have had to pay slightly over the odds to get him. I'm sure he'll be great, and that's not me having a dig at Leeds, but Sunderland are quite prepared to not go for a deal or walk away for a deal if it doesn't work. They did it with John Lukemi to a degree. They did it with Loriente, having agreed a deal last summer, but then there was a little few hitches there, money and injury records and stuff like that. So I think they've earned a level of trust. Just on the is it how are you pronouncing his name, the right back?
Mounier.
Mounier. Okay, I'll go with Mounier. I was going to say Moulier for a second there, but I knew that wasn't right. But just in terms of his age and his experience, we've seen this dotted around Sunderland's squad, haven't we? Obviously, Simon Moore is a great influence on that goalkeeping group. You've got Granit Xhaka at the club, Renildo Mandava as well at left back. So if Trey Hume's playing 2 games a week in Europe at right back, or he's coming up against tricky opposition, he can say to his new colleagues, like, how would you deal with this? How would you deal with this sort of winger? We've added Jose Fonte to the coaching staff as well. And all of a sudden, we're starting to sort of supercharge our experience around the place. And I think that could only really be a good thing. And actually, when you look at Sunderland's squad, a lot of them actually have played in Europe. Not very much, but they have, like Noah Sadiqi's played in Europe. Talby's played in Europe. He's played in the Champions League. There's different players as well. But this guy, as you say, has done it for the last 15 years. So having that in and around the squad as well as an option, I think it's a really good thing.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of the state of play where we are in the transfer market, I suppose to finish off, are we still in agreement that we still need a left back? We still need a left centre back. We still probably need some sort of central defensive midfielder for Granit Xhaka's cover and a right winger. Are they the essential positions? Maybe a striker?
I would say so. I think if Wilson Isidore stays, I'm not sure they will get a striker. Obviously, Sewell, you would hope, would provide goals, or somebody like him. He's actually quite versatile as well. He can play off the right. He can play off the front man. So if you've got Wilson Isidore, Robbie and him, you do have a fair few options. Left back, I think, is the most glaring squad hole at the moment, just because of Dennis Serkin's exit. Obviously, Renildo Mandava is, I think, 32, pushing 33, something like that. So you want a young understudy to compete. And Flonka Solfi said he wanted 4 or 5, didn't he? So with the positions you've just listed, plus the new lad that's come in, that would be around that number, wouldn't it? So I think, but then again, if Sunderland can't get a left-sided centre-back and a left-back, then will they get a player that plays both? Does it mean that Sealt might stay at the club, who's an option in central defence? We don't know the answers to these questions yet. But yeah, I think right wing and left back for me, really, really important. Yeah, interestingly, the noises out of the club via Keith Downey, who we know was very well sourced earlier on in the summer, suggested that they weren't actively looking to recruit in that area, which is a surprise to us. You wonder if a deal came up for the right player, would they then pull the trigger on that? Very possibly. But even when Sunderland have been linked with an attacker midfielder today in Holland, that's been sort of vociferously denied. So I'm interested in that area of the pitch as well and how that develops.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hopefully everyone enjoyed this bit of a pre-season preview. We'll be back, no doubt, throughout the next, maybe even again this week, depending on what's happening.
Are we talking about memberships or not?
No.
Okay, are you done with your memberships?
I've said my piece on it. I mean, unless you want to talk about it, but yeah.
No, I'll wait. I'll wait for the Raw, because me and Phil will probably do something.
Yeah,
a bit of cross-platform promotion there.
A little bit of cross-platform promotion. We'll have 2 minutes on it. Just a general view. I don't want to answer, because there's a lot of logistical questions. This is what I was trying to avoid on my live streams. I do not work for Sunderland as a.
Oh, you don't have to. I have been inundated, my friend.
Yeah. So I suppose my 2 cents on it is the 20 quid season ticket plus. I don't mind. I think they're having the 10% tickets available. So, because like me, I go to normally 3 to 5 away games a year. Like that was always I've done that since I was 13 or 14. That's always what I've done. And since we got back to the Premier League this year, because of the loyalty point situation, I've not been able to get to a single away game this past season. Even the ones like Everton away in the Cup, they sold out like straight away. So I wasn't able to get one for that. So having 10% available, that gives people a chance to go, I don't have an issue with. My problem is it was launched horrifically. I think that the launch of it was terrible. And B, I don't like the idea that there's a young family, maybe a mother and father with 2 kids, that are going to have to fork out like 160 quid to potentially have the chance to buy tickets. That does not sit well with me, and I don't think that's right at all, unless I've misread it and that's not correct, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. It doesn't sit well with me. It feels like a bit of a cash grab, and I don't think you get enough from what I've seen in the membership to justify that level of cost. I wondered if maybe if as a family you could get like a family bundle, because the other thing is a lot of the membership perks, i.e. getting access to live streaming, even though they give that away for free and stuff like that. Once one person in your household has got that, you don't need 4 people to have it. So I wondered maybe if you would have been better off having like some sort of bespoke package for families where it's cheaper to add more on. So look, I'm not a fan. I don't like it when the club goes to that well. I think the 20 quid for season ticket plus I don't mind as much, but the 50 or 48 quid for the main membership I'm not a fan of, and I think it's been pretty poorly communicated.
Yeah, I think it is a cash grab. I think you're right to say that, and I think the club would probably point towards wanting to increase revenues. I think we all understand that if you want to see more Enzo Lefebvre and Granit Xhaka, then the club absolutely have to make moves on this front. I think there were only 1 of 4 clubs in the Premier League that didn't have some sort of membership scheme. I don't think that should necessarily matter, because at the end of the day, you're asking fans in a working-class area where wages are behind the median level of the rest of the country to pay more again. I don't necessarily have a problem with some of the tiers and some of the offers, but when does it end is my question. Like, how much are we going to have to pay? I get some people will say, well, season ticket prices are still fairly cheap by Premier League standards, and it's just like a little add-on, and we're trying to monetize people who don't have season tickets. I get all that, but I just do wonder where it ends and how much we pay. And I think, season tickets are creeping up again. We sort of understand that they are, quite reasonably priced by Premier League standards, but I'm just, where does it end? And I think from a communication standpoint, I thought it was rubbish, to be honest. And I was thinking about this earlier, and Sunderland's social media team is absolutely excellent for matchday content, for all of the stuff. Sunderland, so for tweets, Facebook, whatever you want, video content, absolutely brilliant. Now, it's probably not their sort of job and role to push this out. It'll be the commercial and the marketing team, all of that sort of stuff. But why aren't they utilising the expertise that's at the club? Because they produce some great things, to do videos where this is clear as day, to produce, a live social media Q&A or something, anything, frequently asked questions. They did put that out later. I mean, for context, this scheme dropped in people's emails at like 4:15, and then it was on sale at 10 o'clock the following day. That they kindly gave, sort of kindly gave journalists the first look, so we were able to sort of tweet information out there, but we ended up just getting a bunch of questions that we couldn't answer, and we had to go back to the club and ask these questions. So the communication I thought was really, really bad. I think there's a moral question where I don't necessarily know what the right answer is, because you have a lot of fans that want to go to away games and home games, so you create ballots for them, but then does that harm, particularly away, the chances of somebody who's built up their points and spent a lot of money, say in phase 3, getting an away ticket when they've put the hard yards in and spent the money? I do get that. I understand as well, Connor, that there's a portion, albeit quite small, of the away allocation that goes to commercial clients these days. So if you are a high Black Cats point customer or fan, you are seemingly getting squeezed from every angle despite having paid your money. Now, there is a closed shop as well. We know that with the Black Cats points, and people in those tiers would argue that they sort of deserve it in all of this. But even if you're a young fan who couldn't go to away games in League One, where is your opportunity? So that is a question I sympathise with in terms of the club. I don't know whether that's, something that's easily solved, and I'm not sure there'll ever be a perfect system. But I just think the way this was presented wasn't very good. I'm told there was fan consultation on this, and they spoke to ticketing groups, but consultation is very different from acting on the queries and questions and problems raised. I think they have changed a few little things, but I don't think there were wholesale changes. And again, this just could have been handled so much better. And to go back to my initial point, I'm worried that we're just all going to get asked to pay more and more and more, and a lot of people won't be able to afford it. And I think you're absolutely right to point out families, because if you don't have a season ticket, this is essentially a tax on hope, in my opinion. That's what it is. You are monetizing the hope. That's what you're paying for. You are paying for the hope of getting a ticket to a home game, or perhaps an away game if you're a season ticket holder. So for me, to have to pay for a family like £100 just to get in a lottery, I think is I don't know. I'm not sure about it as well. And I understand the club want to monetize their content that well within the rights to do that. And I'm very, very wary about criticizing the subscription model too much, given the publication and company that I work for, because it's obviously something they prioritize as well. I get we have to pay for things, but under 21 streams going behind a paywall, certain content, certain interviews, all of that sort of stuff. People are poor. Some people are poor, and for some people, that is their access to the club, as the free content is sitting down, watching an under 21 stream, or watching a couple of videos on Sunderland YouTube, watching the behind the scenes stuff, which is hugely popular. For some people, like that is their fandom, and then to put that behind the paywall again, I know it's not a great deal of money per year, and when you break it down per month, it looks even less. But I just wonder where we're going here, and whether it's actually worth sort of annoying elements of the fan base. That there are a lot of people that are actually happy to pay for this. A lot of overseas fans will be like, "Oh yeah, this makes me feel close at the club." Absolutely fine, fair play to them if they want that option. But I just think it does punish a little bit of your core support as well, and take a little bit away from them. And it's it's tough because we expected and want Sunderland to monetize because of PSR and all these financial regulations, but you just wonder how much money will this actually generate. It will give it a boost on paper, but it's not going to be tens and tens of millions. It might get above $1 million, but it's more likely, I think, to probably be in the late or the high six figures, which is not an insignificant bit of money. But in terms of PSR, there's a bit of a drop in the ocean, really. So I don't know. It's tough, and my overarching point is I don't really know where this ends in terms of how often is it going to happen in the coming seasons. What I will say as well is that there are a lot of questions, even though the club have moved to clarify some things, there are a lot of questions over families, linked accounts, all of this sort of stuff, which has been bubbling on the surface actually for a long time that we've covered. Disabled people experiencing a little bit of issues now with, do their carers get in for free or not? There's been mixed messages. People at the club told me that was absolutely the case, but when these people have gone down to the season ticket office on essentially mine and the club's recommendation, they've been told it's not the case. So I think ducks need to be in a row. I think they need to utilise the excellent social media team more to make messaging clearer, and I hope this is the last of it in terms of trying to monetize your core fan base, because I think Tom Burwell said you can't keep going back to the same well of people, and so he's aware of it. And this, to me, I felt quite encouraged by his words actually after that meeting. But to me, this is actually going back to the same well of people. I know it's only £20 for the season ticket plus, and it gets you a ballot for away fixtures, so that's pretty good value, to be fair. But the rest of it, I'm not all that sure about, and the tiers are just confused, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say is just from a marketing perspective, I just think there's so much that could have been done. Like, if it was me, I would have had a player-led video talking about how they all feel part of the club and them touching the badge, and like, I don't know, you get Enzo Lefebvre leading the brand of it, everyone's favourite player, and you talk about, how we're all together as one club and being a member. And then I think it needed to launch. Apparently there's an app, but the app hasn't been launched. So I think for me, if they were going to launch a content hub that had like Frankie and Danny leading the coverage, you get pre-match, you get post-match stuff, you get actual podcasts and shows that are interesting that you can watch on YouTube, and it maybe accesses your YouTube memberships or something, that for me would have been far better, and I would have felt like I was getting more for the money. I feel like a lot of fans just think they're paying £48 to get into a ballot, and that is basically it, because everything they're given was free anyway.
And this, this is the thing, and you could actually argue that for the price of your initial season ticket, you've got all this stuff anyway, and that was sort of a perk of being a season ticket holder, wasn't it? That you got bits and pieces of this stuff, but now you've got to sort of go and pay again for it. So that sort of doesn't sit well for me as well. And I know these things have to be put together quickly, and I have a degree of sympathy that, things are fast moving and fast paced, but what is the exclusive content? What exactly is it going to be? Here's a menu. This is exactly what you're going to get. Try and build a little bit of hype about it. But at the moment, it feels, from a content perspective and point of view, of which we inhibit that space, where it's just like, well, we will offer something, but we can't give you a full flavour. And I guess that's not the whole point of this thing, is the content. But if you were trying to sell it, if you were trying to sell the whole thing, then that would have been the way to do it. But it's capitalism, it's modern football, and as I say, you have to wonder, where does it end? That's
Where
definitely
does
more
it
than 2
end?
minutes. That's
Where,
definitely more than 2 minutes.
yeah, where does this podcast end? It ends now after
The
we
time
spent
is now.
12 minutes talking about memberships. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks James for joining me. Thanks everyone for the support on the Disco Pants podcast. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back certainly next week. We'll have stuff. Maybe we'll come back for another episode this week if there's anything particularly to talk about. But me and James are both at the York game, so I'm sure next week we'll have plenty to say about that. And yeah, check out everything James is doing on the Echo. Check everything out on my channel, which I'm sure you are if you're watching this. And we'll see you all soon.